The story begins with a family traveling together in a horse-drawn carriage. The mother, Rebecca, was on her way to marry a man, and accompanying her were her two daughters, Alma and Elvira. Today was Rebecca's wedding day, and they were on their way to meet her soon-to-be husband. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Elvira, who was infatuated with Prince Julian. She admired him deeply and dreamed of one day becoming his wife. Prince Julian was the ruler of a fictional kingdom named Switzerland. However, Elvira wasn't considered conventionally attractive, and she was often treated as the next best in her family. That's actually why the story was called Next Stepsister. Deep down, Elvira knew she probably never stood a chance with the prince, yet she couldn't help but dream. Eventually, the family arrived at the home of Rebecca's fiancé, Otto. Otto was extremely wealthy. His house was grand and luxurious. Rebecca and Otto got married, and the family became part of his household. Otto also had a daughter named August, who warmly welcomed Elvira and treated her like a sister. During a private moment, Elvira confided in August that she longed to marry the prince. That evening, the family sat down together for dinner. But suddenly, something tragic happened. Otto collapsed, and blood began pouring from his mouth. The scene turned chaotic, and August broke down in tears over her father's sudden death. Later that night, Elvira went to check on August and bring her some food. She found her lying on the bed, devastated and lifeless. Elvira sat beside her and noticed a makeup brush nearby. When she picked it up, August told her she could keep it. Then in a vulnerable moment, August revealed the truth. Otto had only married Rebecca because he was in desperate need of money. He believed marrying Rebecca would solve his financial problems. But in a twist, August also shared that Rebecca had married Otto for the exact same reason. Both of them had hoped the other would offer financial stability. Shocked by this revelation, Elvira ran to tell her mother. But Rebecca already knew. Creditors had visited the house demanding repayment, and Otto had begged them for more time before his death. Rebecca, overwhelmed by it all, fainted. Elvira rushed to her side to help her. As Rebecca regained her strength, she told her daughter that they would find a way to move forward. But the truth was clear. Rebecca only had one option left, to marry another wealthy man. However, her age made that nearly impossible now. Elvira then boldly declared that she would marry the prince, and that way they wouldn't have to worry. But Rebecca scoffed at the idea and told her daughter to look at herself in the mirror. How could a prince fall for someone with such an unattractive face? Meanwhile, August knelt beside her father's body, praying to her mother for strength and for things to get better. Suddenly, the scene shifts. A royal messenger arrives with an announcement. Prince Julian is searching for a bride and will host a grand ball. All unmarried girls are invited to attend. Upon hearing this, Elvira's heart filled with hope. She decided to attend, as did August. Elvira's dreams of marrying the prince reignited with full force. Determined to improve her appearance, Rebecca hired a plastic surgeon to give her daughter a makeover. The surgeon explained the process. He would begin by removing Elvira's braces and then correct her crooked nose. The procedures would be expensive, but Rebecca promised to pay double after the ball. As preparations began, Elvira glanced into the surgery room and was terrified by the sight of blood. Still, she went through with it. The doctor first removed her braces, then broke and reshaped her nose, causing her intense pain. Her sister Alma silently watched the entire painful process unfold. You might wonder, if Alma was more beautiful than Elvira, why wasn't she attending the ball herself? The reason was simple. Alma was still quite young and didn't feel ready to go. The story moves forward. Elvira began preparing for the royal ball. At the venue, a woman named Miss Sophie announced that only a select few girls would be chosen to attend the final event. A dance instructor named Vanya would make the selections. During the dance lessons, Elvira stood at the front, eager to impress, but Vanya, showing favoritism, rudely pushed Elvira to the back and moved August to the front. In fact, Vanya sent Elvira all the way to the end of the line, placing her with the girls who were least likely to be selected. After returning home, everyone sat down for dinner. Elvira, however, was only given lemon water because she was a little overweight, and her family believed she needed to slim down. During dinner, August asked Rebecca if she would arrange a proper funeral for her father. Rebecca responded that she didn't have enough money at the moment and would only be able to do so after her daughter Elvira got married. This deeply hurt August, who knew all the family's money had been spent on Elvira's cosmetic surgery. Upset, August walked away and went to lay flowers near her father's body, only to discover it had already started to decay. The next day, the girls were busy with their final preparations for the upcoming royal event. Finally, the day arrived when the list of selected girls was to be announced. Many of the girls didn't make the cut. Only the most beautiful were chosen. Elvira, assuming she wouldn't be picked, was shocked to see her name on the list, even though it was at the very bottom. Still, she was thrilled. In the next scene, Vanya, the dance instructor, demonstrated a dance move and asked who could replicate it. Every girl raised her hand. Vanya called Elvira forward, and though Elvira performed the steps well, Vanya mocked her appearance and accused her of making the list only because her mother, Rebecca, had bribed her. Vanya then dismissed Elvira and called August forward. This left Elvira heartbroken, realizing the system was rigged and biased, even from ancient times. Later, Elvira had a private moment with Miss Sophie. Sophie encouraged her, telling her she was better than the others. But Elvira replied sadly, saying the prince would never choose a girl as fat as her. Sophie gently removed the bandage from Elvira's nose, called her beautiful, and gave her something, asking her to keep it safe. In the next scene, Elvira was with her younger sister Alma. Before revealing what Sophie had given her, she made Alma promise not to tell anyone. Elvira then revealed it was a tapeworm egg. She planned to swallow it so the tapeworm would consume everything she ate, helping her lose weight rapidly. Alma was horrified, but Elvira reassured her that once she achieved her goal, she'd take an antidote to kill the tapeworm. Alma still thought it was a terrible idea and walked away, upset. Meanwhile, August was secretly in a relationship with Isaac, the house caretaker. She felt forced to pursue the prince only because of her cruel stepmother, Rebecca. Back with Elvira, she went ahead and swallowed the tapeworm. Shortly afterward, she heard a sound. It was Prince Julian, out hunting with his friends. Seeing him reignited her dreams of marrying him. Later that night, Elvira came home and stumbled upon August and Isaac sharing an intimate moment in the barn. She ran to tell her mother. Enraged, Rebecca beat August and declared she would now handle all the household chores. Isaac was also punished, stoned and driven away. With August out of the picture, Elvira felt like the biggest obstacle in her path was gone. Time passed and Elvira's surgery results were starting to show. Her face had transformed and looked more attractive than before. But the next procedure was for her eyelashes. The lashes were stitched on, causing her intense pain. Afterward, her eyes were covered with a blindfold as part of the healing process. Beauty, after all, came at a cost. Later that night, Elvira was feeling extremely hungry. The tapeworm inside her was growing active, consuming everything she ate, leaving her starving. She looked for food and came across Alma, who refused to help. August, however, appeared and kindly gave Elvira plenty of food, unaware that the tapeworm inside her was still at work. The scene shifted again to dance practice. Vanya was frustrated because August was missing. Rebecca had told her that August had been ill since her father's death. Back home, Rebecca began feeding Elvira and called her Cinderella, a nickname she often used. Elvira asked August to comb her hair, but as August began, large clumps of Elvira's hair began falling out. The tapeworm was not only consuming her food, but also depleting her body of essential nutrients, especially those necessary for healthy hair. This left Elvira feeling extremely upset. Naturally, everything comes with side effects. Just then, her mother arrived with a dress she had ordered for her. At the same time, it became clear that Rebecca was treating August like an animal, just because their father had lied to them about being wealthy. Soon after, they noticed Elvira's hair was falling out. To cover it up, they decided to make her wear a wig. Elvira had to look perfect. There was a ball that night, and she couldn't possibly go with her hair in that condition. Honestly, the whole thing is both hilarious and sad, because even today, many girls go to such extremes just to be considered beautiful. These kinds of things have been happening for ages. In fact, all the modern trends, surgeries, fake eyelashes, fake lips, feel like a continuation of this old obsession. It almost feels like satire. I mean, sure, there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel beautiful, but when guys do the same kind of stuff, why is it judged differently? Maybe that's what this story is trying to highlight. Anyway, on the other side, we see Aegeus pulling out a dress from her trunk. She wanted to attend the ball too. But Elvira showed up, ripped her dress apart, and ruined her chance of going. August was devastated. Heartbroken, she went to where her father's decaying body lay, now being eaten by insects. She was crying when suddenly the spirit of her biological mother appeared. Her mother's spirit told her she would go to the ball. Then, using some sort of magic, the bugs crawling nearby started mending Aegeus's torn dress. It was like something straight out of a fairy tale, exactly like the ones we grew up reading. Aegeus even had a pair of shoes her mother had given her. Her mother reminded her that she must return before midnight, because at the stroke of 12, her royal carriage would turn back into a pumpkin. Sound familiar? It's the classic Cinderella story, reimagined. Her mother also told her no one would recognize her because she'd be wearing a mask. The scene shifts again. Rebecca arrives at the ball with her daughter. Prince Julian is observing all the girls, deciding whom he'll dance with. Then Elvira enters. As soon as he sees her, he's mesmerized. Everyone at the ball was watching her. Finally, the moment comes. The prince chooses his dance partner, and he picks Elvira. They begin dancing. But just then, someone wearing a mask shows up. It's August. When Prince Julian sees her, he walks over and begins dancing with her instead. Elvira becomes jealous, watching them together. Suddenly, Elvira feels something strange happening in her stomach. The tapeworm was causing intense pain. She quietly separates herself from the crowd and runs into a corner where she begins vomiting. Horrifyingly, dozens of tapeworm eggs come out. It turns out the parasite had laid eggs in her stomach. At that moment, her mother finds her and asks what's going on. Elvira breaks down in tears, but Rebecca brushes it off, saying she'll find even richer men at the ball. Elvira, however, has had enough. She doesn't want to keep living this way, but Rebecca slaps her and forces her to go back, introducing her to various men as if nothing happened. While dancing again, Elvira begins hallucinating, a side effect of the tapeworm. In her haze, she suddenly recognizes August beneath the mask and realizes it was her who had been dancing with the prince all along. It's almost midnight. August runs away, but just like in the original Cinderella tale, one of her shoes falls off. Prince Julian picks it up and declares that the girl whose foot fits the shoe will become his princess. Hearing this, Elvira rushes home and confronts August, demanding the other shoe. August refuses. The two of them end up in a scuffle at the door, where Elvira eventually grabs the shoe from her. At that moment, Rebecca walks in, with a wealthy man beside her. Clearly someone she's hoping to marry off her daughter to. She sees the state her daughter is in, but she's far more focused on impressing the man than caring about Elvira. After that, we see Elvira trying to squeeze her foot into the shoe, but it doesn't fit. Desperate, she gathers the courage to cut off her own toes to make it fit. She slices off her toes, bleeding heavily, and collapses from the pain. Her younger sister Alma rushes in to help her. Alma had already warned that all of this wasn't right. Hearing the commotion, Rebecca comes in with her new boyfriend. He faints immediately at the sight of all the blood on the floor. Despite everything, Rebecca doesn't show concern for her injured daughter. She figures out that Elvira cut off the toes on the wrong foot, because the shoe the prince had was for the other foot. Without a second thought, driven by greed, Rebecca cuts off the toes on Elvira's other foot too. In the meantime, Elvira, unconscious from the trauma, dreams of her fairy tale wedding with the prince. The next morning, Elvira wakes up in her bed, in worse condition than before. She hears the prince's voice outside and, barely able to move, starts crawling toward the door. When she gets there, she sees August. August looks at Elvira and then walks over to Prince Julian. The glass slipper fits her perfectly, and the prince declares August his princess. At that moment, Elvira's dream is crushed. Then Alma comes to Elvira, her only real sister, the one who truly cared. She gives Elvira an antidote, and soon after, a large number of tapeworms begin pouring out of Elvira's body. Alma was ready to leave the house with her sister, having realized their mother, Rebecca, was hopelessly greedy and didn't care about them at all. Rebecca was too busy flirting with her new boyfriend to even notice what her daughters were going through. So Elvira and Alma finally leave, choosing to live their lives on their own terms, free from the toxicity of their mother's obsession with wealth. Meanwhile, we see Prince Julian and August together. Cinderella has finally found her prince. But there's a twist. In the end credit scene, we see the decomposing body of the auto rickshaw driver, August's father. It's clear now, despite all the riches and glory she had gained, August had forgotten her own father. In a heartbreaking moment, we see her crying and begging for money for his funeral. And just like that, boom, the movie ends.